Hi there, Alan here with Discovering Buddhism from Vajrayana Institute, but actually from home. Welcome everyone, good to see some people there. And today's our fourth class on karma, fourth and final class on karma. Next week we start on, I think it's refuge. Yes, hi Julia, great to see you there. So basically, this is mostly about purification today, the class Purifying Karma. But so I hope you got the notes. I sent them out this morning, and I also sent out the answer guide to the questions for the module. It comes with the Discovering Buddhism materials. So we'll have a quick look at those. Some of them, the material won't cover until tonight. So hopefully we'll get through what we need to and without any technical problems. So let's just start by doing our 5 minutes calming of the mind, breathing meditation, mindfulness meditation. So getting comfortable position, sitting, lying down, standing, whatever's comfortable. So just now coming into our inner world, what's happening in our body, what's happening in our mind. Have a sense of letting go the outside world, the day that we've just had, or the external distraction, stimulus. We can just leave that outside. And we always begin with just checking our motivation, the direction of our mind, foremost to appreciate this incredible opportunity we have to study the Dharma. We still have the human body, still alive. We'll just, as much as possible, focus on the content of the class. Remember, ultimately we're doing this, all this study and all our mind training for not just our own benefit, but to benefit others. Mahayana motivation to actually progress along the path, full enlightenment, no more karma, no more cyclic existence. So when we've got a Buddha mind, we can be of maximum benefit for other beings. That's the aim. Maximum benefit for others. Now just coming into the body, just making sure we're comfortable, evenly balanced. Relaxing the shoulders and the neck and the head. The spine reasonably straight. And just bringing our attention now to the movement of the body with the breath, how the breath enters and leaves the body. Giving our mind a very simple task, watching what's already there, the movement of the breath, air entering and leaving the body. Remember to keep a small part of the mind just guarding, watching, monitoring, checking whether we're still on the breath or not. When we notice any distracting thoughts, we just gently let them go, patiently come back to the breath. Just relax. So we just maybe have a quick look at what we did last week. As you probably discovered, it's a huge, vast, oceanic topic, karma. The more I read about it, try and teach it, the less I feel I know about it. There's always a feeling that there's a lot there that I don't understand, a lot there that I still need to investigate. So it was quite reassuring to hear that only a Buddha mind can actually fully understand karma. So until we get to that stage, we have to just take it step by step. So don't get discouraged. Every bit helps. So just looking at last week, we just looked at that idea of gathering constructive actions, how to gather positive karma, and some of the things that affect the weight of karma or the power of karma. Just refresh, we have those three sort of categories of results of karma. The first one is the ripening result. The ripening result, that's the one that sometimes is called throwing karma. Just to confuse you, they often change the terminology. The ripening result is where we end up in the next rebirth as a result of the karma we've accumulated in this life. So what the karma that throws us into the next rebirth. That's the ripening result. The second one, result similar to the cause. So sometimes they actually put this into two categories, that if your karmic, say, tendency is, say, the negative action of telling lies, for example, then the result similar to cause has two aspects. First of all, your experience in the next life, next human life, people lying to you, and finding yourself in situations where you've been defrauded or been the subject of deception. The other aspect of this result is the result of right lying is that you have the tendency to repeat it, to have the habit of lying and doing more of that negative action, creating more negative karma, the snowball effect. So that's the second aspect, result aspects. The third result aspect is what they call environmental karma. So this is sometimes it's called completing karma, just to make it confusing. The idea of, say, if you're the environment that you're in. So if you're born you've got the good karma to be born human, but due to some negative karmic seeds accumulated in past lives, you're born in a, say, a place that's very dirty or very dangerous. And if we take the example of lying, I think the example, if you're born in a place that's, you might have a human body, but again, you find it difficult to trust people, and you have a tendency to lose material wealth and so on. So also we had a quick look at His Holiness's list. He said that things that can affect our karmic results are how often we do something, how habitual we are. If you do something just one-off, but don't have a habit of it, that won't be as strong a karmic formation as something that we have a habit of doing. Our motivation, if it's positive, that's going to affect the karmic result, particularly if it's something that is intended to help, to benefit others. If the motivation is self-serving or malicious, that will produce corresponding negative result. So there's also these, the weight of karma can be diminished by our mental impairment. Ignorance, like small children, understanding the results of what they do, what's right and wrong. So we had a look at that. And then we had a quick look at the ethical issues that His Holiness raised, particularly in relation to science. So activities in the normal everyday world, whether they're actually producing positive karma or negative. And things like science, he said, can be very helpful or can be very harmful. And of course, things like atomic weapons, atomic power can be very beneficial, can be very harmful. We can see the effects of the atomic bomb in World War II, the harmful examples. Things like assisted suicide, mercy killings, particularly with animals. We had a look at those, all very interesting, complicated, and depends very much on the motivation. And then the heading is interesting points raised by His Holiness, and he mentions about that the time of death is very crucial in terms of ripening karma, the moment that we end this life. There's that that aspect where the certain karmic seeds can be activated at the time of death, and if we activate positive karmic seeds at that time, that can throw us into a very positive rebirth, particularly a human rebirth. Whereas if for some reason we have, say, a moment of anger, attachment at the time of death, that can have a negative throwing effect into the next life. So the karmic tendency at the time of death is one that is very powerful and can activate those karmic seeds that are there, waiting to be activated. So, and then karma in daily life, interesting examples. Everything that happens around us can be seen as an example of karma, particularly things in the news, life stories of people, some very positive, wonderful things that happen to people, and then very tragic things in their relationships or their success and so on. So nothing happens by chance in the Buddhist teachings on karma. Everything is there as a result of some previous cause, previous lives, usually in previous life. Okay, so this week, just maybe before we look at this week, let's have a quick look at the questions. I'm giving you the answers because there's no chance for discussion. We've just got the screen. So I just had a look at the answers. I think they're pretty good. First question, why is understanding karma so important? And the main part of the answer there is how that karma is definite. So unless anything done with a positive motivation, positive causes will produce positive results. Anything negative results. Just a classic example of the plants in the garden grown from seeds. Only a lettuce seed will produce a lettuce, only a tomato seed will produce a tomato, nothing else. Okay, so that's the idea of a definite. The idea of dynamic karma is this idea that there's a momentum to karma. It's the positive seed will increase, the negative seed will increase. Small positive action over time can accumulate. Just like, again, the classic example is money. When you put it in the bank and it gathers interest, compounding interest for karma, and so the more the action stays there, the more power it gathers. So if it's a negative action we've created, we need to purify. That's the topic we'll have a look at tonight, importance of purification, how effective it is. So no one can help us to change our karma because it's all our own. Okay, I mean, we have to experience our own karma. No one can do it for us. And most karmic actions have their result in the future. It's more usual for a karmic result to happen in a future life. Okay, so the person who defrauds people successfully seems to get away with, ripping millions out of people's bank accounts on the internet or whatever it is. We need to remember that those results of those actions will most likely happen in a later life, in this life. So it's not as if that person's not going to reap negative consequences from that result. Once we become aware of how karma works, become more mindful, we live much more carefully. We see how powerful our actions, our thoughts, our speech is. And so we avoid the harmful actions and, as much as possible, increase the positive actions. Excuse me. Second one, what is a complete karmic action, and which aspect do you think is the most important? So that was those rather technical 4 things needed for a complete karmic action: intention, an object, the actual action, and the completion. And we use the classic example of killing, intention to kill a human being. The object, it has to be a human being. Action is the actual killing. Completion is the person dying and us feeling that we've completed our act and we feel satisfied. So quite a lot needed for a complete karmic action. But so there are degrees. There might be intention to kill, but it doesn't come. We don't succeed. Whereas there'll still be some karmic results because we've had that intention, but it's not a complete karmic action. So in some ways, it's good to know those that theory on how complete karmic actions happen, I think. But yeah, a little bit technical, but good to know. So next one, what's the difference between throwing and completing karma? I think I've just mentioned this when we did our sort of summary of last week. So basically the throwing is the ripening karma, the karma that throws us into the next life. Could be a human rebirth, could be an animal, depending on our karmic seeds that are ripened at the time of death. That ripening karma is very powerful, the one at the time of death. Completing karma is the environmental one. I think completing doesn't really sort of tell you much about what it means, but environmental karma I think is a much better word because it tells you about where the circumstances of where you're being born, and it's usually all about the circumstances of a human rebirth when they're talking about environmental karma. Although it could be the example I think I gave of an animal being born, a person having an animal rebirth in the next life, but actually being a very spoiled and well looked after animal with the best conditions. So the throwing karma is animal rebirth, negative. The environmental karma is positive, being well fed and well looked after. And of course, we can have the reverse situation where the person gets a good throwing karma into a human body, but ends up being born in an environment where there's great dangers like wars, famine, threats to life, and all kinds of difficulties in the environment. So that's basically there. I think they've covered that quite well. So the fourth one, there are 4 results of non-virtuous karma. So give one example of each. I don't think I need to go through that in great detail, but they've got a very good sort of answer there, giving examples. 4 examples, 3. Killing, the result of killing. Lying, giving all the detailed results of the throwing karma, completing karma. And malice, which is the thought of wanting to harm another being. So let's just look at the next one. What is the most important aspect in the nature of virtuous actions? I can quite understand that question, but I think what it means is what's the most important aspect in the creation of virtuous action? How to create virtuous actions. So I think the answer suggests that's the correct interpretation. So we need to actually have the intention. Not just doing nothing is not going to create virtuous karma, just avoiding negative action. So we need the intention to avoid killing, lying, and so on. So need to actually have that mental aspect. And to make it even more powerful, we can do things like taking vows. Taking a vow, when we take refuge, you can sometimes take a vow not to kill intentionally. Or you can just take vows for 24 hours, lay vows, they call that. So that's they call it taking precepts. we can do that, taking a vow not to kill, not to lie, not to steal, not to cheat, and so on for 24 hours. And so that has a much more powerful action because we've taken the vow, and creates much more positive karma, positive merit on our mind stream than if we didn't take the vow and didn't kill, lie, or steal. Just the power of the vow on the mind stream. Okay, so the last one is just about purification, which we'll come to tonight. So we'll just leave that one for the moment. Okay, so tonight, basically purification, but before we get to that, make sure I've got the right notes here. Just have a quick look at this idea of indefinite karma. Actually, until I read His Holiness's teachings on this in the book Foundation of Buddhist Practice, which I've mentioned, it's on your reading list, I actually hadn't heard of indefinite karma, but I guess I understand it, but I hadn't given a name to it. So basically, the idea of different karma is that these actions are done, but they don't accumulate negative karma, or may not even accumulate positive karma due to basically something that's in the mind of the person or not in the mind of the person. Most of the examples, and there are 10, are about person doing a negative action but not experiencing negative or full negative results. So they are interesting, and the first one is actions done in dreams. So if we dream, for example, that we make an offering to the Buddha or to our guru, very auspicious, very positive dream, it doesn't have the same effect as if we did make an offering. So in real life to our guru or to the Buddha. But His Holiness says that when we wake up, we remember the dream and we rejoice in how wonderful that dream was, how lucky I was to be able to make an offering to my guru or to the Buddha, how great it was. Then that makes it a positive karmic action. Okay, so it's done in dreams. It could, but if you of course wake up and you wish you hadn't made an offering to the Buddha, that could turn it into a negative action. Similarly, he says if you dream that you kill someone in a dream, it's a dream, so you haven't actually accumulated the actual physical action. But if you wake up and you regret that, you're sorry, and you feel you didn't want to kill that enemy, and thank God I didn't do that, I just dreamt it. That's a way of negating the effect of that negative thought in mind. Okay, so dreams, what we do when we wake up is very important, it seems, as how we react to the dream. Okay, so just another reason good to remember dreams. If we can, it can be difficult. It's a whole new technique and a whole new set of teachings. Lucid dreaming, it's called, remembering. Or lucid dreaming is slightly different. That means that you're conscious, you're dreaming when you are dreaming. But similar, also, if we can actually hold the thought of the dream when we wake up, and if it's positive, give some rejoicing thought or some positive thought. If it's negative, regret it. Actions done unknowingly. So, example would be taking something. If you say you go to some sort of place and they have something offered on a table and you think it's free and you just take it. So you unknowingly take those goods thinking that was freely offered. So you haven't accumulated the negative action of stealing. Probably another good example was unknowingly being given too much change. It's a good example from the cashier at the shop. And keeping it, no negative action. If you've actually taken something that was mistakenly given and you thought it was correct. So that the interesting situation is where you do remember or do notice it and keep it. Or you do notice it and you take it back. So if you do notice and take it back, that's obviously negating there's no negative karma anyway, because you haven't taken anything, it was mistakenly given to you. But if you do consciously keep it, Renata gives this example in her teachings, and she says possibly it's some negative karma involved. I mean, if it's a minute amount, you might think that probably the cashier would much rather you not go to all the trouble of bringing back the extra 5 cents. So again, can depend on the situation. There might be other pressing things that prevent you from going back into the shop. You might have other commitments. Anyway, so this is interesting. Actions done unconsciously. His Holiness gives examples, accidentally stepping on insects, which we're probably doing every time we leave the house, or even in the house. You know, it could be stepping on all the mites in the carpet and so on. So actions done unconsciously, he says, indefinite karma. We don't have the intention there, so it's not going to be a karmic consequence. I think he's saying really there's no negative karma or minute amount of negative karma. Actions done without intensity. So this is intending to do something, but not really. Uttering a few words of idle talk for a short time. So we might remember that idle talk is one of the negative actions of speech. Just chit-chatting away, maybe talking about other people. So this, if it's a habit, much worse. But if it's just a few idle words, His Holiness says, without intensity, there's little or no karmic result there. Actions done mistakenly. So he gives the example of somebody is talking about somebody and he gives praising, so it's a positive action. X praises Y. But later it turns out that he was actually talking about Z. He mistakenly praising the wrong person. So even though if he's praising, if there's some positive karma from praising that person he meant to praise, and he got the wrong person, then that positive karma is reduced or negated, because he hasn't actually directed the positive thought to the right person. Both the same thing would happen to the negative. Negative. Not sure about that. Negative. If you're criticizing somebody and you get the wrong person, it could be even worse actually. If you're criticizing someone who is in a way not in your vision or in your thought, but you're still criticizing them. So I think that would be a negative action. I'm just thinking on the run here. Don't take it literally. Actions done unwillingly, under threat. This is where somebody's holding a gun at you, or could be just threatening to hurt a member of your family. If you don't blow up your house or whatever, if you don't do something that would in itself be a negative action. In criminal law, there are all kinds of interesting scenarios where the person's being threatened. If they don't kill another person, then they're going to be killed, acting under duress. Or maybe just giving the combination to the lock in the safe in the bank because somebody's holding a gun. If that's the situation, then acting unwillingly, have no intention to do that. They're acting under threat, so no negative consequences. Number 8, actions done that are ethically neutral. Interesting one. So just how walking, he gives the example of walking, sleeping, driving, eating and sleeping. So in normal situation without deliberately setting a motivation, these are ethically neutral. But he also points out, Solanus points out that we can put some positive karmic imprints if by doing these things for with a positive to benefit others. Lama Zopa has this wonderful phrase. When he's teaching bodhicitta, he says, walk with bodhicitta, Sleep, we've got to cheat it. Eat, we've got to cheat it. So that thought of wishing to benefit others in everything we do, including sleep, it can have an incredibly powerful effect, positive effect on our mind stream. So we can turn these neutral actions into positive actions. So actions eradicated through regret. So he gives the example, if we tell a lie to somebody and then we tell them later that we're really sorry that we lied, and confess and regret it. So I think this also brings in purification, how to purify negative action, which we'll talk about in a minute. We can also eradicate positive actions if we give generously to some cause, maybe to a dharma cause, and then we later regret, oh, I shouldn't have given that. I've sort of wasted my money. That's going to eradicate or at least diminish the positive merit, even if we don't take the money back. But mentally regretting giving it can actually reduce the amount of positive karma we accumulated by giving, by generosity. So the power of the mind, again, actions eradicated with a remedy. This again is purification, seeing the disadvantages of killing and taking a precept not to kill. That was one of the examples His Holiness gives. So taking deliberate intention not to kill. But basically another way of doing it is taking a vow, or realizing emptiness is the ultimate cure for all negative actions. If they're done with, all actions done with the realization of wisdom, realizing emptiness, we won't accumulate karma. That's the Buddha mind. So we'll look at that right at the last topic tonight, the way to end karma and cyclic existence. If we have realization of emptiness when we're doing our actions, body, speech, and mind, we won't be accumulating negative karma. Okay, so great beings like His Holiness and realized beings, Buddhas, don't accumulate negative karma or karma at all. So, keeping an eye on the time, 6:39. So this is now talk about purification. Purification has basically it's reversing negative habits of mind. Turning things around to have a different way of thinking. It's a different way of thinking, from a negative way of thinking to a positive. So we need to sort of see the disadvantages of creating negative actions, how dangerous they are to self and others, and making a really strong determination not to do them again. So it comes down to we need to actually, to avoid, say if we've done something negative, we need to purify before we reap the results of those negative actions, before they come to fruition. If we've created the course to be born in an animal rebirth in the next life, it's not going to help. It'll be too late once we're born as the animal, because it's already come to fruition. But if we manage to purify those karmic seeds in this life, then we won't have to experience the result of being born in the animal in the next life. So, the mechanics is that we're removing the causes of that karmic seed to ripen. We're removing the causes to ripen. His Highness points out that actually, ordinary being, the seeds are still there on the consciousness unless we become enlightened. But by purification, they can't come to fruition. If we purify it well, those potentials, karmic potentials, won't come to fruition. But to actually get rid of the karmic seeds themselves, we need to become an enlightened being. So, but we're talking about, steps towards that. First one, so there are these 4 opponent powers. You might have heard about them. If there's any talk about purification, you'll hear about the 4 opponent powers. First one is the power of regret what you're doing, seeing that it's negative and being sorry for doing it. The second one is the power of the object or the basis, more subtle. And the third one is using a remedy to eliminate that the causes, take action to purify, the purifying action to clean that negative action. And the last one is the power of resolve, that not to do it again, not to repeat. So let's have a look at them one in a bit more detail. So His Holiness says this first one, power of regret, is the key to good purification, proper purification. So it's strong motivation. And he says part of having a strong motivation to not repeat a negative action is to understand how it happened and how negative, how what the consequences are, how cause and effects works. So it's some of those points that we made earlier about the results similar to the cause, the tendency to repeat the same negative action. So all this understanding can help seeing, my God, this is so serious now. I can't just do anything and not experience a consequence of it. It's going to have an effect. So, understanding why we're losing our temper so often, or some other negative habit we might be experiencing. So His Holiness points out very strongly, and also all the teachings, that regret is not guilt. Okay? Guilt seems to be very much a Western thing. Doesn't seem to happen very much in Tibet or the Eastern cultures. So the idea of emotional guilt, feeling, really condemning yourself as a person because you've done this thing, is very harmful. So regret is not that. It's a change of heart, seeing the downside, the disadvantages of that negative action. Okay, so the negative action is separated from this you're not 100% identifying with that, whereas with guilt you can sort of identify as a bad person because you lost your temper towards that person, or you lied, or whatever it was. So this is very important too. His Holiness says that it's a mistake to think the more self-reproach you have, the more you're purifying. He says it's not true. Actually, the more harm you're doing yourself, the more beating up yourself or feeling self-hatred or loathing because you've done something wrong. Okay, so it's regret, not guilt, and so understanding the consequences, karmic consequences, how karma works, can help generate regret. So read the little excerpt from Lama Yeshe there. The power of regret or release is the wisdom that understands the negative repercussions of unwholesome actions so well that the moment you become aware that you've created a negative action, you want to purify it immediately. Okay, so this is the best way to feel regret. Feel that you just done all you want to do is purify, because you know how powerful that action can be, how negatively powerful. This moment you realize what you've done, you want to purify it. So so that's the best form of regret. The power of the basis. So this is probably for me the most subtle. I've never always felt that I don't fully understand it, but I think I'm getting to understand the power of the object, and it's taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And Lama Yeshe said he also has an interesting way. He says it's taking refuge in other beings, in human being or other sentient beings as the basis for purification, taking refuge in them. It's very, very profound teaching. I think we could take it in different ways. I think it's saying that bodhicitta, wishing others to be happy and wanting to make them happy, is a very powerful, purifying thought. I think that's that's one aspect of what he's saying there. So, but the more traditional teaching is that you take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So you remember that refuge can have two aspects. Actually, it's the next topic that we do next week. We start next week. So we can take refuge externally in the Buddha, enlightened beings, the Buddha. It could be our guru who represents the Buddha. We have a guru. We take refuge in the teachings of the Buddha. The teachings are actually the way we improve our mind by enacting the teaching, and we take refuge in this spiritual community. That could be ordained Sangha, or could be our fellow meditators, our fellow Buddhists. So the other way, which I think for me is more powerful, is you taking refuge in your inner Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, your inner Buddha nature. Okay, so we have this inner Buddha nature that all beings have, all sentient beings have Buddha nature, and all these negativities that we're a victim of, the seeds of their negativity, are impermanent, like clouds in the sky, and masking the Buddha nature that is there, that can be revealed when we purify and practice the path and progress along the path. So, so this incredible set of Buddha's teachings that we've come across, incredible teachers we've come across, and our fellow Buddhas are all there to help us, and that we go to them for help. So that's that third aspect of the basis. And I think Lama Yeshe's thing that we're taking refuge in bodhicitta is very powerful as well. The third one is the power of the remedy. So this is the more the practical thing of what you actually do. And so in Buddhism, in the Mahayana Buddhist teachings, there's a number of things, specific purification practices that are available. So there's a list there that's not exhaustive. His Holiness says that just reciting certain prayers and sutras, such as the perfection of wisdom. Remember, that's the wisdom. The teachings that normally we do at VI before Geshe Samson teaches, or there's many prayers, but we may not do it every time. But it's the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, which is quite short. You can say it only on one page, or the Sutra of Golden Light, which is quite long, and couldn't really do it in one sitting. But so these very blessed words of the Buddha, when we read them, we can actually purify our minds. Very powerful. Making offerings to Buddhas or Buddha statues or stupas, very powerful way of purifying, or to our guru, or to the Dharma, or to say to centers or Buddhist causes. Vajrasattva practice, which we've just done at VI. Venerable Daki recently led a weekend doing Vajrasattva practice. Some of you might have done that, or part of it. So Vajrasattva is a set of a way of purifying negative karma, where we actually read a sadhana And then Vajrasattva is a tantric deity, negative karma, where we actually read a sadhana. And then Vajrasattva is a tantric deity, visualize this particular tantric deity and say a mantra, 100 and, how many syllables is it? 110 syllables, 108 syllables. It's quite a long mantra. So you say the syllable. It's quite a long mantra. So you say the practice, do the particular prayers, the sadhana, and then say the mantra repeatedly. Repeat the mantra. And practice, do the particular prayers, the sadhana, and then say the mantra repeatedly. Repeat the mantra, and also using the four opponent powers while you're saying the mantra, practicing regret, practicing power of the object, practicing resolve not to repeat. Vajrasattva are very powerful. So some of these purification practices you can just do like in a weekend. Vajrasattva, you don't actually need an initiation to do it. So it's not highest yoga tantra. I think it's the next one down from highest yoga tantra. So it's possible to do Vajrasattva practice if without initiation, but with initiation we'll also make it even more powerful. And if you want to do if without initiation, but with initiation we'll also make it even more powerful. And if you want to do a full retreat on Vajrasattva, you do a 3-month retreat, recite 100,000 mantras of the Vajrasattva mantra. So it can usually be done in a group. I think they used to do 3-monthly Vajrasattva retreat every year at Tushita, or maybe they're doing it at Kopan now. Somewhere in the world, they'll certainly probably be doing a retreat somewhere. So if you've got the incredible fortune to be able to have 3 months to spare and do that practice, it's said to be good if you've not, unless you're very experienced meditator, to do it in a group if you can. Then it's very powerful practice, very powerful purification practice. Making statues, satsas. Satsas are the little statues like made of plaster of Paris usually. So again, that's a purification practice. And again, if you're doing it in a very formal way, you make 100,000 satsas. The guru or your teacher will probably guide you on what's the best sort of satsa to make. Another one is to build stupas, or to help build stupas. So the big stupa project in Australia at the moment is the Stupa of Enlightenment, Stupa of Great Compassion in Bendigo. It's called the Great Stupa of Compassion. And that's a huge stupa, biggest, equal to the biggest in the world, a copy of the one in Tibet. So any offerings made to that stupa or to help build that stupa is going to be very powerful. So any offerings made to that stupa or to help build that stupa is going to be very powerful. Or any stupa, just even a small little stupa, making an offering, or making one yourself, or giving an offering, or making one yourself, or giving some money to have one made, can be very powerful. Prostration to 35 Buddhas. So this is another practice involving particular short prayer and then reciting the names of 35 Buddhas while you're doing the prostrations. Not sure whether this has been taught lately at VI, but usually there's sometimes, every now and again, they have a weekend on prostrations, how to do prostrations. And Geshe Santram does occasionally teach on purification using prostration. So that's a powerful way of purifying. And also purification using prostration. So that's a powerful way of purifying. And also very physical way, because you actually do the prostration. So if you've been to Tibet, been to India, or been to a Buddhist site in India, such as Bodh Gaya or His Holiness's Temple in Dharamsala, you'll see people doing prostrations, Tibetans usually, our Westerners too, doing prostrations around a holy object such as a stupa or His Holiness's residence in Dharamsala. So if you can do prostrations around holy objects, it's even more powerful. Taking the 8 Maha precepts for a day. So this is a possibility if you've heard about them. If you do a retreat with Lama Zopa at any stage, if it's in Bendigo or in a dedicated place, there will be the option to do precepts during the retreat. If you do a retreat, say at Chenrezig, then there could be an option to do precepts. Sometimes at VI, we've had retreats before the coronavirus problem. We've had retreats, live-in retreats at VI with precepts involved. So precepts, if it's lay precepts for a day, you just take vows not to kill, lie, steal, etc. And then the other sort of more physical thing is you only eat one meal a day and you finish eating before midday. So again, precepts can be a very powerful way of purifying. Meditating on emptiness is extremely powerful. Another way is making mandala offerings. So some of these practices are very formal, some are less. Okay, so if we've got time, hopefully, I'm going to try and do the meditation on how the I exists, emptiness of the self tonight. And so the mandala offerings, again, it's something I, for some reason, I've avoided. Never actually done that as a practice, but you actually use a mandala equipment and you visualize that you're offering precious jewels, all the precious things of the universe, and build up this little plate using things that represent the precious objects of the world. So you can do that in a more formal way, or you can just put your hands in the form of a mandala. So you can do that in a more formal way, or you can just put your hands in the form of a mandala, like that, and say the prayers and visualize that you're offering precious things, beautiful things, precious things, beautiful things to the Buddhas. So there are different examples of the power of the remedy. The next one, power of resolve, is determined, making a very strong decision not to repeat the actions, the negative actions. So this, if you've got the full understanding of the power of how karma works, this is going to be much stronger. So we've got this, again, Lama Yeshe's got a very powerful way of expressing it. So it's more than an intellectual decision. He says you make great determination never to create any negative action again. And there's something very complete, a firm and strong. It's firm and strong and comes from wisdom. And with this incredible strong determination comes a subtle energy that protects you from moral flaws, from doing it again, doing the negative action again. So it's a force, kind of counteracts the old habits and instinctively protects you. It has different degrees, but when fully developed, it offers perfect protection. Power of resolve not to repeat the action. Bodhisattva practice with these four apparent powers it becomes perfect purification. So just a couple of points by His Holiness on purification in general. He says, so understanding how karma works, the power of destructive action, makes us being very mindful to watch our behaviour, and we see how important it is to avoid. So he says, as I mentioned before, need to do this before their seeds ripen. Most seeds will ripen in the next life, but we could be experiencing, like if we suddenly get ill, out of the blue, we suddenly experience some sort of negative result in our finances. Suddenly, we lose our success in business or whatever. This can be the fruits of karmic seeds ripening in this life from seeds that were sown in previous lives. So, as I mentioned earlier, he says ordinary beings, that's us, non-Buddha, doing purification, it weakens the results of the negative seeds. It's like putting them, like seeds of a plant, making them infertile so they can't actually produce a plant. And he gives the example of, it could be, we're not actually eliminating the seeds unless we reach Buddhahood, but he gives the example of by purifying, instead of experience of extremely serious, he gives the example of by purifying, instead of experience of extremely serious car accidents, where either fatal or very serious, we may stub our toe, a very minor sort of accidents, where either fatal or very serious, we may stub our toe, a very minor sort of negative experience. And instead of being born in a negative rebirth next life, we might have to experience some illness in this life. Okay, so this is why this need to bear in mind that sometimes what we're experiencing in this life could be the experience of a much milder form of karma than we would experience in the next life, particularly if we purify, done some purification. Okay, so maybe the disease or what it is that we're experiencing now is something much less than what we would what an unpurified action, what an unpurified action would result in the next life. Okay, so using the realization of emptiness can help purify. Also not mentioned there, but by dedicating when we do some positive action, so we actually seal or protect the positive imprints that we've made from being burnt up by anger later. We have a moment of anger. So dedicating is always said to be very important after we've done, say, prayers or retreats or some positive action. We've made an offering, dedicating to the Mahayana motivation of full enlightenment. So that cause of full enlightenment is protected, and that positive karmic seed is protected, dedicating. Otherwise, the moment of anger, we can burn up undedicated positive karma very quickly. He also points out the fact that you don't have to be Buddhist to accumulate good karma and to live a very positive life and have positive rebirths, giving the example of Mother Teresa, who he interestingly says probably didn't fully understand karma, but created a huge amount of merit by helping the poor in India. And so you don't have to know anything about karma or to be Buddhist to be able to do positive actions and even to purify. So interesting point about communism in China. There he mentioned, His Holiness mentions that the the early communist revolutionaries had the positive wish, or some of them had the positive wish to help the poor, but they also had the negative thought of wanting to, or hating the rich, hating those in the privileged, the old previous pre-communist society. So there were these two contradictory motives in the communist Chinese revolutionary, wanting to give equal help to the poor and also to bring down the rich and make them suffer. Then he says, this can happen in our own situation as well. We should be careful to equanimity, not just want to help those who are obviously in need of help, but realise that even those who appear to be very privileged are still in samsara and still suffering, have the seed to be very privileged, are still in samsara and still suffering, have the seeds of suffering, and possibly could be even suffering more than the obviously poor, underprivileged people. All right, so time is moving on dramatically. Just a little bit, most of the rest of the page, the 4 and 5, are just what notes from from White Chong when he was teaching the subject. Very useful, interesting. Basically, very useful, interesting. Basically mentions the very profound truth that the root of all the negative karma is not understanding how things exist, misunderstanding of reality, how objective phenomena exist and how we exist as individuals, as selves. So this root of ignorance needs to be tackled in order to fully eradicate our tendency to accumulate negative karma. So enlightenment's the only answer. And the more we understand, more we can study and practice some sort of understanding of emptiness, wisdom realize emptiness, the more we can develop progress along that path to full enlightenment. So to do that, we need good concentration and what they call vipassana, which is penetrative insight, understanding the empty nature of self and phenomena. That penetrative, special insight, the Sanskrit word is vipassana. Okay, so a more practical point there is to develop mindfulness. Without mindfulness, we can't develop vipassana. And to help develop wisdom realizing emptiness, we need to understand dependent arising, the dependent nature of all things. Okay, so I think with that, that leads us to the final meditation, which I'm planning to do, which is the meditation on the self, how the I appears, and how this meditation is to help understand the emptiness of the self, the way we exist as individuals. So just quite a few, just before we start the meditation, basically we see everything instinctively as unenlightened beings as being very solid. The outside world out there, we're here, that exists independently, we exist independently. So this is, according to Buddha's teachings, completely ignorant way, wrong way of seeing things. To quote Lama Zopa on how we exist, this I that we feel is very solid and existing from its own side is the object that we need to refute negate, need to sort of crack the foundations of this wrong concept. So he says, this I, this me, self, has been empty and non-existent from the beginning. This wrong concept, I. It's never existed. So, but by holding on to this hallucination that this I, wrong concept I, exists, from its own side, we create the root of samsara, root of ignorance. Okay, so from there comes all the negative actions, doing things out of concern for this non-existent self, is creating the negative karma. So, quote Lama Zopa. So, quote Lama Zopa, there is no I or self inside the body. My body is not the solid self, nor is my mind. The collection of body and mind, the aggregates, is not the self. The I exists, but only as a concept or label on its collection of physical body and mind. Right? So just also with this practice on emptiness of the self, we need to avoid the two extremes. The danger is to, when we do the analysis, we conclude wrongly that there's no self at all, it doesn't exist at all. And the other extreme, that there's no self at all, it doesn't exist at all. And the other extreme is that there is a self that's very solid, that does exist. So they're the two extremes. Nihilism, no self at all, and materialism, or I don't know what the word is, where there is, this concrete, non-existent self. So it's something between the two. There certainly is a self, but it's this, like a rainbow, something that is lacking intrinsic existence. It's dependent on causes and conditions, ever-changing causes and conditions. It's not independent, it's dependent. All right, so of course, it's not something we can get in one session, but it's the idea is to repeat sort of this sort of meditation to help loosen the grip of grasping itself, help crack the foundations of that ignorant view of self. Okay, so let's do it. We've got probably just less than maybe 15 minutes. So hopefully we'll be able to make some progress. Okay, just get comfortable, in a comfortable position, sitting, lying, or whatever. Okay, to start with a few moments of watching the breath to calm the mind. So I begin this practice meditation on how the I appears to our mind and the emptiness of the I, the self, starting with looking at this sense of me sitting here right now in this room, on the cushion, on the chair, wherever we are. If we can get a sense of who is this me, can we actually identify and get a feeling of the sense of me? This is something that's usually quite solid, quite definite. Sometimes it's hard to find if we're in quite a calm state of mind, but if we're in a disturbed state of mind, the sense of I can actually arise very strongly. Think of a situation where we're being criticized, someone saying bad things about us, and we're feeling a little bit disturbed, upset. How dare that person say that about me? It could be an unjust accusation. Feel that sense of indignation, that I. Another situation you might remember is if we're in danger, our life is threatened, near-death experiences. I nearly died. I nearly was hurt. Another one is when we're praised and we feel that sense of pride rising. So if we can recall these situations where we had a strong sense of me, I, just looking at that, feeling that. Stay with this sense of self. But once we have this sort of feeling of self, we're going to look, investigate if we can find the self. In the first place we look is in the body. Let's have a look if we can find it in the body. Is there a me somewhere on the heart level where we usually point to the middle of the chest when we talk about me? The physical me. Is there anything physical in there? Not the physical heart? Can't be that. Can it be the brain we're talking about? Can it be any particular limb, organ in the body? Can we find the me, the self, anywhere in the body? Perhaps it's the whole body. We're talking about the whole physical human body. This is me. If that's the case, we analyse more deeply. If it's the whole body, then we can't lose any part of the body. Otherwise, we'll lose part of me. Think of having a haircut. We've lost part of me. Think of all the changes happening in our body from moment to moment. The cells dying and regenerating, the blood changing, all those physical changes happening in the body, moment by moment. Perhaps if we maybe lose a part of the body, say a limb, if we lose an arm, we've lost part of I, if it's the body. How much can we lose of the body and still have I? So, can't actually identify it as solid, independent, unchanging me, self in the body. Let's look somewhere else. Let's look in the mind. Recall our mental consciousness, what's happening when we do meditation. We see all the thoughts flashing by, memories, the images, plans, concepts, emotions, feelings. Thoughts, consciousness changing moment by moment. Can we find a solid I in the thoughts, the consciousness, feelings? Is the real me the happy me? The real me the neutral me when I'm either happy or sad? How can we find a solid, unchanging me in the mental consciousness? It's changing so quickly. So it's hard to find this solid, concrete me we're so sure about in the body or the mind. Can it be outside the body and mind? Is that possible? Something separate what do we mean when we say, I am meditating now? I am listening to the teachings on karma now. We know that there is somebody there. It's not totally non-existent. Perhaps it's just this collection of physical, body, and mental aggregates or components. In which case it's not independent, self-existing from its own side. It's dependent, not independent, but dependent on all the components, the body. And what we're doing is just labeling this ever-changing collection as me. This is me. As a concept, nothing to hold on to, nothing existing from its own side. The solid, independent I is an hallucination. So the conclusion is that the I, me, the self, there is a self, but it's not a concrete, independent self that our instinctive mind creates. It's dependent, not independent. All the causes and conditions, creating the body and creating the mind, ever changing. They're all subject to their own causes and conditions. There's nothing solid. Nothing to grasp, nothing to hold on to. So now we just come back to the beginning of the meditation when we're looking at the I on the cushion, seeing if we still feel the same certainty that there is an I there, or have we cracked that there's some doubt, we've cracked the foundations of ignorance. Of eternalism, thinking that there is something that's unchanging and eternal there. Just having a doubt is said to be incredibly powerfully beneficial to the mind. The emptiness of self-existent I. So, we'll conclude by dedicating any positive merit from this practice towards a fully understanding wisdom, really realizing emptiness, having penetrative insight of how the I exists. That's vipassana. And that understanding contributing to our wisdom realizing emptiness, our progress along the path towards full enlightenment. Full enlightenment means no more karma, no more collection of karma, no more uncontrolled rebirth, no more cyclic existence. So just also I'm going to read Lama Zopa's special dedication for the COVID-19 time, he says, however many sick sentient beings there are, may they quickly be freed from all sickness. May all sickness, without exception, of all transmigrating beings never occur again. And due to the merits of the 3 times collected by me, all the numberless Buddhas, and all the numberless sentient beings, may all wars, sickness, famine, torture, poverty, economic problems in the world, or dangers of earth, water, fire, and wind be pacified immediately, and may perfect peace and happiness prevail in everyone's hearts and lives. May the Buddha Dharma last for a long time. May sentient beings in this world meet the Buddha Dharma and achieve enlightenment as quickly as possible, dedicating to that. Okay, that's the session tonight. Hope you enjoyed it or got something out of it. So have a great night, great week, and hope to see you next week for our new topic. I think, pretty sure it's refuge and refuge, taking refuge. I think so. Better check up on that, but I'm pretty sure it is. All right, take care, have a good night, and see you next week.